Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast here at Manifest, and I am in the Maersk podcast studio with Maersk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Branding all the way through for Maersk here. Very smart to sponsor the podcast studio, I will say. And I am joined by Erez Agmani, who is the Global Head of Innovation, LNS. I just learned what LNS stands for. Yeah. Let's see if I remember. Logistics and Services. Yes. So everything to do with moving product around, basically, is how I understand it. So thank you for joining me here. Thank you for sponsoring the podcast studio. Yes. So maybe I should say thank you for having me. It's your studio, right? So it's a pleasure to connect with you here. Why don't you give us kind of a brief overview of Maersk and what it is you guys do? I mean, I think people are familiar. They see, Maersk on containers, right? But there's more to Maersk than just that, right?
Of course. Thank you for having me, Kevin. I appreciate that. So Maersk, as you mentioned, everybody knows the ocean freight side of things.
Yeah.
But in reality, in the last 5 years, Maersk is much more taking into the role of integrator of logistics, end-to-end integrator of logistics, where beyond the ocean freight moves, we have air freights, we have airplanes, we have warehouses, we have trucks, we have custom brokerage, we have supply chain management. So it's really to support our customers on the journey to improve their supply chains and ensure that they have less friction in moving their goods, because there is so many reasons to have frictions nowadays with disruption left, right, and center. So that's basically the role of Maersk.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very interesting that you mentioned the disruptions, because I think there's always been disruptions in supply chain, right?
Absolutely.
But I think since the pandemic and COVID and all that stuff, there's a bigger spotlight on disruptions, maybe you could say, right? But part of trying to, create a more resilient supply chain, a more, not necessarily foolproof, it's hard to get a foolproof supply chain, but, is innovation, right? And being able to look at new technologies, how can they help us, prevent some of those disruptions or things that have happened in the past. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your role a little bit as innovation, head of innovation, and how you really look at innovation and kind of what that means to you.
Sure. So we created the innovation team about 3 years ago. We used to do a lot of innovation even before that, but it was, let's call it unstructured, here and there and on the side, and this team does that and that team is doing this. We decided that let's focus on that. Let's make it systematically and repeatedly so we can actually start to accelerate of innovating and bring ourselves where we want to be, where we need to be for ourselves, for our customers. So we have mainly 3 pillars under our innovation team. The first one is our robotics, automation, autonomous, so all the things that can support the work in the warehouse or supports the trucking elements of things. Ensuring that the flow of the goods is being done in a much more optimized way. It's supporting people in jobs that can hurt them or can create a problem, etc., etc. The second pillar of innovation is our digital innovation. That's where we have some work about digital twin, computer vision to support what we're doing, AI, machine learning, etc. All the buzz.
That's the buzziest pillar right there. Yeah,
that's the buzziest pillar. Normally, when I tell about the pillars, people stop me in the automation and robotics. Oh, that's cool. But then when I go to the digital, oh, it is even cooler.
Yeah.
So definitely those things are cool and cooler. But I think the third pillar is really the thing. It's the product innovation. And product innovation means different things for different people. For us, it's really to build new solution, new product for our customers. It's not product from terms of building an IT thing.
Yeah.
It's really to create certain elements that our customers can really improve their supply chains. Now, in order to do that, you need the first and second elements to be part of a bigger thing. I'll give you one example of what we're doing there. It's we are working actually with MIT to build dynamic routing. So instead of customers telling us, hey, move the goods from A to B and then B to C and C to D, and by that creating themselves a supply chain with a huge variance over there, because it's very difficult to control something that repeatably go to the same, because the disruption is along the way, and it's between the handovers of things. So when you do that, you always hold responsible the company that you give it on a very short, narrow part of the leg.
Right.
And they can do a great job, and then you still miss the milestone at the end. You may be okay because you put in your ERP system a huge amount of days that it will be there, but that's not what our customers want. They want to minimize that. They want to make sure that it's maybe plus minus 3 days, not plus minus 40 days. So this is how we actually trying to help them to find the best route. Of course, keep the price in a reasonable level and make sure that you can hit the transit time again and again. So we need all this to orchestrate together in order to make it happen. So that's one of those elements.
So, I mean, in that sense, are you guys developing kind of your own systems in-house? Or are you more so looking at external systems to bring in and partner with? How do you approach that?
So that's another perfect question. Thank you.
No problem.
Basically, the work we're doing is part of an ecosystem. We're not trying to just live in a bubble and create things by ourselves. So we have our internal different stakeholders, our internal business unit that we support them, our internal enablers that could be an IT teams and developer teams within the company, that certain things we want and decide to go internally. But then we have multiple external stakeholders that we're working with. It's our customers, first of all. Some of them want to co-create with us. Some others want to just enjoy what we're creating, but at least giving us to test it on the business we are running for them, or give us ideas on how they think it's going to look like. Then we have academia with multiple universities. By far, MIT, it's the strongest relationship, but many other universities. We are working with them to create certain of the things as well. We have government partners that we're working with. Normally that's not to create things, but to learn what from legislation or from
any kind of regulation.
What do they want to promote? How we can collaborate with the ecosystem that they creating. And last but not least, there is venture capital startups and mature companies that we use very much to help us to build most of the things. We're trying to avoid, unless it's really necessary to build it inside, we're trying to go outside because speed, focus, and we don't want to hire a bunch of people that tomorrow the roles they need to learn new things altogether. Interesting, interesting perspective, and I think that's good that you embrace the external, right? I mean, of course,
if somebody is doing something that I think can be beneficial, right? I mean, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel, as they say, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious in that aspect that you go external, and we're here at Manifest, right? So there's a lot of startups here, right? How do you evaluate some of these startups, and because some of them can be fairly new, right? So if you look look at that and you say like, okay, this is an interesting solution potentially that we could use, but how do you evaluate that, okay, that startup is ready for us to be able to do that, or do you help them maybe accelerate in a way?
Yeah. So before we evaluate the startup per se, we evaluate is their solution fits to a problem we're trying to solve. So we start there because it can be very exciting to see startups that are doing amazing things, but it's not in our priority.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's tempting. Hey, why don't we try that? But you know that if you start pushing things outside of what your priority is, it's probably nothing going to go. So right. That's the first evaluation that we do. After that, how far is their solution from what we need? Because a startup can be focused very narrow, focused on specific things that could be 180 degrees from how we believe it's going to be solved, or can be 5-10 degrees aside. And that's where we said, if they're very early stage, hey, why don't you come work with us in a much more condensed way, maybe even sit with us. We will support you to focus it on something that will help us, and by that probably going to help others. Those that are slightly more advanced startups, normally they already kind of found somebody that cares about it. So if it's further out from where we need, can they become still a solution for us? That's kind of where we're looking into that. If yes, good. Now, the next step for us is really to run proof of concept. So we don't go big bang, okay, this idea is great, let's deploy.
Go all in.
We are...
We're in Vegas, so you got to go on.
We have to go all in, but through a proof of concept first. So we're trying the solution. We create an environment, normally in a live environment where there is a real business, not lab-style environment, which you always forget certain things and you celebrate for something that later fail. We work with our different teams that are running the business to ensure that this is going to really be supporting what they're trying to achieve, or our customers are trying to achieve certain things. So we're testing that. Proof of concept can be very short, can be very long, depending on the problem in mind. If it's successful, then we're starting to expand and grow beyond that until we can hand it over to the business. If it's failed, we basically go to stage 2. After we identify the problem, stage 2, hey, let's go find another solution.
Interesting. So I'm curious, because we have some startups that listen to the show. I mean, if you were to give them some advice on maybe prepping themselves to be ready for Maersk, what would you say is the way to go?
It's really depend on what type of startup they are and what is in their mind. But I think in a discussion with us, and I'm sure with many others, be honest about your capabilities. Don't overshoot to the moon, because we see a lot of startups. Of course we can do that. Of course we can do that. And then you realize that they're far, far away from that. If you believe you will be able to do it in a year, just say that, because if we're starting a proof of concept and we didn't identify certain of those things during the due diligence before that, and it fails because of that, it's very difficult to gain the trust later on again. So it's better to kind of have an open discussion. What is the capabilities? Where you are you willing to broaden the scope sometimes if needed? Because in that probably you need also to have a discussions with whoever funded you. Are they going to support you to broaden that scope? Which sometimes is needed, not always. Sometimes you can be very narrow focused and it will work for everybody. But there are some examples that it just doesn't make sense. You need to be slightly more wide with your solution in order to make sense for anybody. So those tips will be probably good for anybody, even beyond us.
Interesting. Okay. And as we look at kind of innovation and just tech in general in the space, I mean, obviously there's been a ton of evolution and advancements. And, you know, I mean, our space, logistics, supply chain is, I mean, you could argue is one of the most interesting and cutting edge spaces for technology right now. I mean, most of these cutting edge technologies that come out, they end up finding practical applications in our industry, which is an exciting part to be of. But I'm curious, what's catching your attention for 2024? What kind of technologies are you really looking at? What's top of mind?
So definitely continuing with the different robotics and solution around that. There's quite a lot that has been done in the past few years, not too many years, but it's keeping accelerating and becoming more nimble to what those solutions can provide. That is one element. Anything related to data and capabilities to manipulate and work with the data, it's definitely an important element. We have tons of data in our hundreds of databases. So we're pushing them all into data lakes, but it's still so much to do with those data. So and predict and design and using that. That intersect with computer vision that I mentioned before. I think this is definitely an interesting element because in supply chains, there are many things that you don't have exact data in the system for. There's no system that registers this or that, and you need the vision. Human can easily do that, but in a very small scale and very local scale. If you can intersect between computer vision and other system and create some better enablement for the data, that could be. We see it as a very exciting element. We built a few projects around that that really changed the game for us. And of course, the power of computing now, that you can start to do so many things in a much easier way is definitely a good.
Very interesting. And I think, keep coming back to that data, and that's such a key element too, though, because as you look at the future and we see some of the things that are out here on the floor, we see some of the things that are, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, all these, videos like humanoid robots and things like that. I mean, you still need to make sure that you have that data in place and to be able to make sure that you can implement these things later on as they become more adopted and more widespread to be able to do that. So I think it's great that you're emphasizing that point and you're looking at the technologies that are surrounding that data and how do we capture that and make it more easy to digest or make actionable insights based on it. I think that's very, very important. So very interesting to talk to you here, Rez, and I appreciate you allowing me to be in your podcast studio here for Maersk. So it's great to...
I'm not having any say in who is here, and we're just putting a nice name behind.
Yes, definitely. Well, we appreciate the space here and definitely appreciate talking to you and picking your brain a little bit. If people are interested in learning more about Maersk, what's the best way to do that?
So we have a website specifically for innovation. It's called innovation.maersk.com.
All right.
So it's part of the bigger Maersk, and there is a connect us function over there. People can see a little bit of what we're doing and how we're working about things, but they can also connect with us through that website or reach out LinkedIn and other. Every method you can find us.
Find them. You find them.
Exactly.
So thank you very much to Rez for joining me here on the podcast today. And we'll definitely put all the information as well at thenewwarehouse.com. And I appreciate your time today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.